Liberia's $770 million fake debt scandal, the audit that shook a nation and warned a continent. Welcome to the Bold African Voice, BAV. When the General Auditing Commission of Liberia opened the nation's financial books, what they found wasn't just debt. It was a ghost story. Over $770 million in so-called obligations with no proof, no contracts, and no paper trail. I'm your host, Zainab Karoma. Tonight, we dive into Liberia's fake debt scandal, a financial thriller decade in the making, and explore what it means for the rest of Africa. Because when a nation can't tell who it owes, it's not just a budget problem. It's a crisis of trust. The latest audit from the General Auditing Commission, GAC, in Liberia has revealed a rather startling figure, roughly $770 million or thereabouts of domestic debt claims are invalid, undocumented, or unverifiable. To spell it out, the audit reviewed over decades, from 1980 to 2024, a large portfolio of domestic debt to arrears, vendor claims, supplier contracts, internal government loans, etc. Out of around $871 million in the version of your write-up, or $771 million in other reportage, only a small proportion was properly documented. The vast bulk was rejected as invalid. Front page, Africa. In one version, 950 claims amounting to $769,757,930 were deemed invalid, 88%. Your write-up aligns with that. In another version from the news, over $678 million in claims were rejected. Either way, the message is clear. Liberia has a serious problem in domestic debt management. Auditor General P. Garswa Jackson Sr., as referenced, calls this a wake-up call. The Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, MFDP, plus other agencies have been urged to act. What exactly are the irregularities? Here are the main issues identified in the audit. Lack of original supporting documentation, contracts, vouchers, invoices, job completion certificates missing, non-approval of claims by the proper authorities in many cases, poor reconciliation of accounts and instruments, e.g. treasury bills, promissory notes, with underlying legal, contractual basis. A system in which claims accumulated over decades were never properly vetted, so one ends up with phantom debt, or at least highly doubtful debt recorded in government books, which nonetheless might be serviced if not caught. The sheer age of some claims, dating back to 1980, means documentation may have decayed or disappeared. Meanwhile, the institutional memory, cadence of governance, oversight may have been weak during periods of instability, civil war, weak state capacity. In short, the mismatch between what is claimed and what is proven is massive. When 88% of claims are rejected, that's not a rounding error. That's systemic. Why this matters, beyond the headline number, you might ask. So what? They rejected $707 of claims. Isn't that good for the government? Well, yes and no. The issue is deeper. 1. Fiscal risk and budget distortion. When large unverified claims sit on government books, the budget could be distorted in a number of ways. If unverified claims are accepted or end up being serviced, they divert scarce public funds away from core services, health, education, infrastructure, into paying debts that may not even be legitimate. They complicate forward budgeting. The government may plan based on outdated or inflated debt numbers, or may under-reserve for legitimate claims. Investor confidence takes a hit. International creditors or investors look for transparency and predictability. If domestic debt is a mess, skepticism rises. 2. Governance, institutional credibility, and trust. This isn't just an accounting quiz, it is a governance crisis. The absence of proper oversight suggests weak institutions, public financial management systems may not be delivering. It fuels public distrust. Taxpayers wonder, why did we pay or record this debt if there's no proof? It may open the door to corruption, duplicate payments, ghost contracts. When documentation is missing, checking becomes impossible. 3. Burden on future generations. When claims accumulate unchecked, they may become liabilities for which current or future taxpayers are responsible, even though the benefit may be long gone. The economist quoted in your write-up is absolutely right. Future generations may bear the cost of mistakes made decades ago. 4. Domestically versus externally borrowed debt. A lot of attention is often given to external, foreign debt, multilateral loans, etc. But domestic debt can quietly balloon and create as serious problems. Unlike external debt, which often comes with external oversight, domestic claims may be less visible, less audited, less transparent. That means the risk is hidden. Africa-wide comparison. Is Liberia uniquely bad or part of a pattern? Let's zoom out and compare with other African countries to see how Liberia stacks up and what lessons apply. Similar problems elsewhere. Across Africa, many countries have struggled with domestic debt transparency and arrears. For example, some countries accumulate large arrears to domestic contractors and suppliers, which do not appear in official debt databases. Institutional weaknesses, data deficits, weak record keeping, and legacy issues from years of weak governance, conflict are common. How Liberia's scale and context compare the size. $770 may be huge for Liberia's economy, small GDP relative to larger African economies, so proportionally this is a large shock. The auditing result, 88% of claims invalid, unverifiable, is unusually extreme. Many countries might have high levels of unverified claims, but perhaps not to the same documented degree. The historical span. Liberia's audit covers 44 years, 1980-2024. That long stretch gives rise to many legacy problems, e.g., before, after Civil War, institutional disruption. Distinctions and positive outliers. Some African countries are doing better, implementing modern public financial management, PFM systems, domestic debt registries, regular reconciliations, e-governance of debts. For instance, countries like Rwanda or Ghana, to some extent, have invested in transparent debt databases, improved oversight and reporting. As Africa's economy grows, there's growing pressure to ensure domestic debt remains manageable, both in volume and quality. A table for rough comparison country issue with domestic debt, arrears, what they've done right or still need to. Liberia. 88% of domestic debt claims unverified. $770 meter problem. Strong audit. The problem is now publicly documented, but massive reforms needed. Country X, e.g., Nigeria, large arrears to domestic contractors, weak registry, recently upgraded PFM systems, but still large outstanding non-transparent debts. Country Y, e.g., Rwanda, smaller scale of legacy debt issues, more modern oversight, use of debt registry, clearer reporting, donor engagement. Country Z, e.g., Ethiopia, rapid borrowing domestically, mixed documentation, big infrastructure drive, but still catching up with record keeping. Note, this is illustrative, data vary, and not all countries publish equivalent audits. Lessons from the Africa-wide view. The older the claim, the greater the risk of missing documentation, conflict, regime change, migration of records all contribute. Domestic debt rarely receives as much international scrutiny as external debt, which can lull governments into complacency. Effective reform often involves A. Establishing a centralized debt registry, B. Modernizing record keeping, C. Regular audits, D. Linking debt claims to contracts or delivery verification, E. Transparency with Parliament or citizens. Countries that embed strong frameworks early avoid the buildup of decades of questionable claims. Hence, Liberia's case is perhaps on the more severe end of the spectrum, but by no means entirely unique. The fact that the audit is public is a good first step. Forward-looking, what must Liberia do? With a little humor. Here's the game plan for Liberia. Imagine you find out you have a closet full of clothes you don't remember buying, and now must decide whether to keep, donate, or throw them out. This is similar. Liberia has to decide what debt is legit, what isn't, and how to avoid accumulating wrinkled, moth-eaten claims in future. Step 1. Reconciliation and purge. Reconcile all past claims. Go through every vendor, contractor, instrument, note, delivery certificate, payment voucher. Flag those claims lacking underpinning proof. If the contract, invoice, or check stub vanished in a civil war, well, it may be time to write it off or investigate intensely. Create a white list of validated claims and clearly publish them. In parallel, create a questionable claims registry with clear status. Step 2, build a centralized domestic debt registry. A modern central database that records all domestic debt instruments, who owes what to whom under what contract, what collateral delivery is tied, what servicing terms. This registry should be accessible to key oversight bodies, Parliament, Audit Commission, Debt Unit of MFDP, and periodically published, at least summary data. There should be a policy. No debt gets recorded unless contract plus delivery verification plus invoice exist. This is analogous to no clothes stored unless you have the shopping receipt and verified you wore them once. Step 3, strengthen verification protocols for new borrowing. Before issuing any domestic debt claim, contractor payment loan, require contract signed, job delivery certificate, official approval, payment voucher, supplier acknowledgement. Introduce age claim cutoff. For example, claims older than X years, say 10 years, must be reviewed under special protocol, perhaps with enhanced scrutiny or an independent investigator. Use third-party verification where possible, e.g., independent audit of major contracts. Step 4, legal and institutional reform. Update the domestic debt management legislation manual to align with best practices. What qualifies as domestic debt, responsibilities of each agency, audit triggers, write-off rules. The audit found that Liberia's Debt Management Procedures Manual lacks clear guidelines. Empower the GAC and equivalent oversight bodies to enforce sanctions when claims are fraudulent or undocumented, or at least block service payment. Ensure regular external audits, may be donor-supported, of domestic debt just as external debt is audited. Step 5, enhance transparency and public trust. Publish the validated debt list, the size of question claims, progress of reconciliation, and savings achieved from rejecting invalid claims, e.g., use $700 plus $1 million claim savings. Engage Parliament and civil society. Hearings on domestic debt management, public forums explaining how the savings will be used. Use media and citizen platforms to keep the issue alive, because if the public doesn't care, the money might quietly sneak back in. Step 6, monitoring, prevention, and culture change. Embed a no surprises culture. The debt unit should know what is being claimed and paid. Contractors, suppliers should expect verification. Train staff across ministries, finance units, and suppliers on documentation requirements. Use IT systems for document storage and tracking. No more metaphorical shoeboxes of paper piled up in some dusty warehouse. Regular refreshers, random audits, and public scorecards for performance. A forward-looking, humorous analogy. Think of Liberia's domestic debt portfolio like a giant attic full of boxes labeled 1985 invoices, 1992 contractor claims, 1998 supplier payments, many boxes without receipts, some with claims scribbled on the back of envelopes. The GAC just opened the attic and shouted, "Guys, we've got a $770 million of stuff in here we can't prove we paid or even ordered." Now the government needs to A, decide which boxes to toss, write-offs, B, catalog the rest, registry, C, label future boxes clearly, verification, and D, clean the attic so it doesn't fill up again. If they skip step D, at the next audit, the attic will be full again, plus new boxes labeled 2026 claims undocumented. Latest news and immediate implications. According to a recent article, the GAC has declared over $678 million in claims invalid. One report says the audit could save Liberia nearly $704 million by rejecting invalid claims. The audit period is up to December 31st, 2024, covering vendor claims and instruments in US dollars and Liberian dollars. The MFDP has acknowledged the findings and has pledged to reconcile the validated claims with its records. Outstanding legislative and parliamentary oversight are expected. Lawmakers are said to be ready for hearings into domestic debt management. Immediate implications. The government can reallocate funds saved from invalid claims, if the savings are realized, to priority sectors. Credibility boost if the government follows through, important for future domestic borrowing and for external partners. Risk remains. If the invalid claims are quietly converted into legitimate payouts later, the problem simply shifts rather than disappears. The findings may affect Liberia's creditworthiness and how international investors view the country's fiscal management, which could influence borrowing costs and access. Critical analysis. Where the weak spots are and what might derail progress. While the audit is a major step, the real test is implementation. Some critical points to watch. Implementation risk. Will the MFDP and other agencies act promptly? Often audits produce reports, but the follow-through lags. The promises to reconcile are good, but what is the timeline, and will there be independent verification of progress? Resistance from vested interests. Some of the claims likely involve contractors or suppliers with political or business connections. Pushing back may provoke pushback. There may be lobbying or legal threats. Capacity constraints. Liberia has had periods of institutional weakness, civil war, instability. Rebuilding PFM systems takes resources, time, and sustained effort. There is a risk of partial reforms that amount to window dressing. Historical data gaps. Some claims are old, 1980s, 1990s. Records may be irrecoverable. The decision then becomes, do you write them off, risk payment demands later, or pay anyway? The path forward may involve complex legal and financial decisions. New claims risk, even if the legacy is cleaned up. If the system allows undocumented claims going forward, then the problem recurs. So reform must be systemic, not just one-off. Structural governance issues. The audit suggests the Debt Management Procedures Manual lacked clarity on many items: approval, verification, write-off rules. Without clear institutional roles and accountability, reforms may stagnate. For instance, if the debt unit under MFDP is under-resourced or lacks independence, then oversight remains weak. Linking the domestic debt issue with the broader governance environment, transparency, anti-corruption, procurement reform. Domestic debt is only part of the story. If procurement is opaque, so will be debt claims. Macroeconomic environment. Liberia's economy still carries the impacts of past civil conflicts, commodity dependence, external shocks. Even a perfect fiscal system cannot fully insulate from downturns. Domestic debt servicing still competes with external obligations, growth needs, social service spending, so even cleaning up the debt administration does not instantly translate into huge budget surpluses or high growth. If the government uses the savings from rejecting claims to borrow more recklessly domestically, thinking we have headroom, that could be counterproductive. Political economy and public perception. The public will want to see that the audit leads to real change, not just another report gathering dust. If citizens feel this is more of the same, trust will erode further. If the government frames the savings as its own achievement rather than as the result of independent audit and insistence on accountability, the messaging may backfire. People wonder why the claims existed in the first place. The media, civil society, Parliament must keep the issue alive. If oversight fades away after initial media coverage, the momentum for reform may be lost. Looking ahead, what the next 3 to 5 years might bring best case scenario. Liberia sets up a robust domestic debt registry with legal backing. All new domestic debt is recorded, verified, and published. Legacy claims are reconciled. Major unverified claims are written off or otherwise resolved. The government realizes substantial savings, which can be redirected to infrastructure, health, education. Credit rating agencies and international investors note improved transparency, leading to lower borrowing costs domestically and externally. Liberia becomes a case study in reform among smaller African economies. Other countries look and say, hey, if Liberia can clean this up, maybe we can too. Public trust in financial management improves, leading to stronger tax effort, citizen engagement, and less fiscal leakages. Worst case scenario. The audit findings are announced with fanfare, but reforms stall. Many invalid claims remain unresolved or reappear later under new guise. The government fails to create a central registry. New undocumented claims accumulate. The savings get absorbed into general spending without visible link to improvements. Public skepticism rises. Investors remain wary. Domestic borrowing remains costly. The government faces budget stress again in a future downturn. Liberia ends up with the same problem in 2030, large domestic arrears and claims requiring another audit. Key questions to monitor. Will the MFDP publish regular updates on the status of reconciliation of claims, legacy and new? Will the central registry be operational and publicly accessible within the next 12-24 months? What portion of the rejected claims will be legally pursued or written off entirely? What savings are realized and how are they applied? Transparently. What happens to domestic borrowing practices going forward? Is there a cap, ceiling, or approval procedure for new claims? Will the Parliament and civil society stay engaged, ensuring that oversight is sustained rather than a one-time media flash? Humor break? Yes, really? Imagine a neighbor who keeps lending you money for decades, writing down "I owe you" notes, but you neither have a ledger nor receipt, nor even remember who borrowed what. Suddenly you ask, hey, how much do I owe you? And the answer comes, you $770 million. At that point, you'd probably say, wait a minute, who were you lending it to and when? That's essentially Liberia's domestic debt audit. The good news, now the neighbor, the audit, came over, flipped open the old notebooks, found 88% of the entries were just doodles with no signatures and suggested, let's throw out the ones we can't prove, okay? But the bad news, you still owe the 12% that are real, and you have to start a new ledger from today, so maybe skip the doodles this time. Another joke, if debts were like socks in the laundry, Liberia had a laundry basket of claims going back decades with lots of missing socks, documents, mismatched pairs, and even some socks with nobody claiming them. The audit is like when you empty the basket, throw out the socks with no match, and try to figure out what still works. One hopes the government now hires a proper sock sorting machine, i.e., strong debt registry plus proper documentation, so it doesn't end up back in the messy pile next year. Comparative scorecard, domestic arrears, and phantom debt management country scale, SACHI status, latest public signals, what they're doing, notable recent actions, what Liberia can copy tomorrow morning. Liberia audit flagged 678 minors in invalid, unverified domestic claims, decades-old vendor, arrears, and instruments. GAC audit exposed missing vouchers, contracts, delivery notes, urges MFDP CBL to reconcile, build registry, tighten procedures. GAC report, OCT 2025 press coverage details systemic failures in the debt management unit and manual gaps. 1. Central Domestic Debt Arrears Registry with public summaries. 2. No document, no debt rule. 3. Time-bound legacy reconciliation plan with quarterly scorecards to Parliament, civil society. Ghana entered IMF-supported PC-PEG program with explicit arrears, cleanup commitments. Budget instructions emphasize expenditure control and verification. Whole-of-government arrears audits. Auditor General with Big Four assistance. Arrears payables at end 2023/2024, audited under program benchmarks. Reports in 2025 indicate large disallowances of arrears, GHS billions, from irregular, unsupported contracts following the audit waves. 1. Program-anchored arrears audit with external QA. 2. Commitment controls, no PO, no pay. 3. Publish disallowances and litigate recoveries. 4. Bake arrears tests into annual budget circulars. Kenya chronic pending bills at national and county levels. Senate and Auditor General spotlight. Treasury reports detail debt trends. Repeated pending bill verification drives. Senate Controller of Budget push counties to classify, verify, and clear eligible bills on deadlines. Regular county audit, green book publications and public hearings. Transparency surveys keep heat on counties. 1. Hard deadlines to verify, settle truly eligible bills. 2. Public county-by-county dashboards. 3. Make pending bill status a budget approval condition for MDAs, subnationals. Zambia long-standing arrears problem, stock of budgetary arrears, 10.8% of GDP 2023, noted by IMF. Government adopted a formal arrears dismantling strategy 2024-2029. Revised dismantling of domestic arrears strategy 2024 to 2029 prioritizes fuel arrears, most expensive, and sets sequencing and financing for clearance. IMF reviews track arrears metrics under the program. MOFNP provides public debt arrears updates. 1. Publish a costed, time-bound arrears clearance plan. 2. Prioritize high-interest, high-litigation buckets. 3. Stop rules to prevent new arrears, commitment controls, and cash planning. What this means for Liberia: distilling the best tools. 1. Ghana's IMF-style arrears playbook. Verification plus disallowance plus publicity. Independent arrears census led by Auditor General with external firms doing sampling, forensics. Disallowances are publicly tallied, naming amounts and reasons, and the Attorney General pursues recovery where fraud is suspected. 2. Kenya's pending bills with teeth approach, deadlines plus dashboards. Time-boxed verification of bills, non-verified equals ineligible. Public dashboards and hearings force compliance at sub-national levels. Future budgets conditioned on cleaning the ledger. 3. Zambia's strategy document plus sequencing. Don't just audit, plan the paydown. A published arrears dismantling strategy, 2024 to 2029, that prioritizes the most expensive claims and sets funding and timelines. IMF review tables keep everyone honest on the numbers. 4. Liberia's own audit is the catalyst. Now lock in the plumbing. When GAC has handed the government a rare gift, a high-credibility diagnosis, use it to pass a domestic debt and arrears management bill that I. Creates a central registry, Zamainai, enforces document standards, Aitstandai, mandates quarterly publication of validated versus rejected claims, and IV. Sets criminal administrative penalties for fraudulent or duplicate claims. A quick tomorrow morning 10-point action list for Liberia. 1. Freeze payments on all claims not on the validated list. Publish the list and the invalid bucket totals by claimant type and vintage. 2. Stand up a central domestic debt and arrears registry, CDDAR, inside MFDP with audit-ready document workflows. Contract, delivery note, invoice, voucher, payment. 3. Adopt a no document, no debt legal rule, Ghana, Kenya style. 4. Commission a forensic arrears census with independent firms, Ghana model, publishing disallowances quarterly. 5. Publish a costed arrears dismantling strategy, 2026 to 2030, Zambia model, prioritizing high interest and high litigation items. 6. Tie budget approvals for MDAS to reduction milestones in their legacy claims, Kenya model. 7. Create a citizen-facing arrears dashboard, validated versus rejected versus paid, savings realized, court actions launched. 8. Mandate electronic document retention and supplier e-invoicing for all MDAs. Cross-cutting good practice. 9. Empower GAC to pre-audit large claims and refer fraud to prosecutors. Publish sanctions. 10. Communicate, pledge that savings from rejected claims will fund health, education, and local roads with quarterly progress briefs. A pinch of humor because budget pain needs balm. If arrears were socks, Ghana hired a professional laundry service plus auditors to sort, match, and throw out the fakes. Kenya told every county, no matching sock, no wearing it to the office. Zambia wrote a 5-year plan for washing, drying, and folding, starting with the smelliest pile. Liberia just discovered a huge bag of odd socks. Now's the time to buy a sock drawer, registry. Write a laundry schedule, dismantling plan, and stop the dog from stealing new ones, commitment controls. Liberia's phantom debts, from audit shock to action plan, with neighbors' playbooks and a dash of humor. What the latest tells us, numbers, momentum, and where the heat is. In the past few days, Front Page Africa reported that Liberia's GAC declared over $678 million in vendor claims and arrears invalid, citing missing vouchers, invoices, delivery notes, and contract files, symptoms of a system that allowed claims to age gracefully into legend. The same coverage flagged systemic failures within the MFDP's debt management unit and gaps in the existing procedures manual. Meanwhile, Liberia's House has tasked the GAC to extend oversight, signaling that parliamentary scrutiny is finally catching up with the spreadsheets. A Pan-African lens matters. Ghana's IMF program embeds arrears payables audits end 2023 and end 2024, led by the Auditor General with independent assistance, turning pending bills into either paid obligations or courtroom exhibits. Kenya keeps counties on a hot plate with pending bill verification drives, budget approval conditionality, and public dashboards. Zambia went fully technocratic, publishing a revised dismantling of domestic arrears strategy, 2024 to 2029, that sequences clearance, start with the most expensive arrears and locks progress into IMF reviews and parliamentary briefs. Even today's wire summarizing the $770 million fake debt story underscores how central debt transparency now is to Liberia's fiscal reputation. In 2025, reputational risk prices itself quickly into borrowing costs, donor appetite, and domestic confidence. A Liberia-specific no excuses dashboard, what to publish every quarter. If we want this to stick, the government must show its work. A public dashboard that any journalist or grandma in Barnga can read is the best disinfectant. Quarterly dashboard, key performance indicators, KPIs. 1. Legacy claims. Reconciled, percent of total legacy claims examined, percent with full documentation, percent rejected, cumulative savings realized. Source, GAC/MFDP. 2. Validated arrears, cleared, amount paid this quarter, median days to settle, post-validation. Source, MFDP, Central Bank. 3. Litigation and recoveries, number of cases referred to AG, value under litigation, value recovered or offset. Source, MOJ and AG. 4. New claims compliance, percent new claims submitted via e-invoicing, percent auto-match to contracts and delivery notes, number prepayment blocks triggered by missing documents. Source, MFDP. 5. Subnational agency scorecards, MDA by MDA, and county by county compliance league tables, with budget penalties for laggards, Kenya playbook. 6. Arrears. Composition, top 5 categories by cost, e.g. fuel, VAT refunds, roads, IPPs, Zambia's most expensive first transparency. 7. External credibility signals. If applicable, program benchmarks met, e.g. arrears audits delivered on time, and ratings market indicators. Ghana playbook. Why this works. Ghana's approach shows independent audits shift behavior. Kenya's shows that conditional budgets plus public shaming move mountains. Zambia's shows that a published, time-bound strategy disciplines the center. Liberia can combine all three and publish it. Parliament oversight brief. 2 pages, crisp enough to read between roll calls. Objective. Ensure that by end FY 2026, 100% of legacy claims are reconciled. Greater than or equal to 80% of invalid claims are closed or under litigation recovery. All new domestic debt claims are borne, papered, and verified. Hearing schedule, standing committee plus ad hoc subcommittee. Q4 2025, MFDP plus GAC on audit scope, invalid claims rationale, and the whitelist of validated arrears. Front Page Africa's findings frame the agenda. Q1 2026, Attorney General and LACC on fraud referrals, recovery strategy, and plea bargain thresholds. Q2 2026, Central Bank and Accountant General on cash planning, so validated arrears stop re-aging, switch to e-invoicing and prepayment controls. Q3 2026, County/MDA scorecards. Non-compliant entities face budget holdbacks, next appropriation cycle, Kenya. Required filings, quarterly. Reconciliation matrix, by claimant, year, MDA. Evidence packet rates, percent claims with contract plus delivery note plus invoice plus voucher. Savings and redeployment note, which clinics, classrooms, and roads got funded from rejected claim savings. Litigation tracker, cases opened/closed, values, sanctions. See legal hooks to pass this session. Domestic debt and arrears governance bill creates a central domestic debt and arrears registry with mandatory e-documentation. No document, no debt enforceable rule criminalizes duplicate fraudulent claims. Quarterly publication duties, whistleblower protection for public finance officials. Budget conditionality on arrears progress, MDA and county. These reflect the mix of Ghana's audit-anchored conditionality, Kenya's budget levers, Zambia's strategy mandates. A realistic, time-boxed Gantt, 18 months that won't drift. Phase 0. Now, January 2026. Break glass controls. Payment freeze on all claims not on the GAC validated list. Publish the validated whitelist and invalid totals by vintage/category. Stand-up team plus procure e-invoicing and registry backbone. Off the shelf, no bespoke science projects. Parliament first hearing. Cabinet approval of the arrears strategy and dashboard KPIs. Phase 1, February to June 2026. Clean the attic. Forensic arrears census, sampled deep dives by independent firms, Auditor General lead. Ghana's template exists, borrow it. Litigation pipeline established, plea bargain rules, recover fast, don't posture. Publish dashboard VI1, implement budget holdbacks for any MDA failing to provide documentation, Kenya. Phase 2, July to December 2026. Pay down smart, deter forever. Execute a costed clearance plan, pay validated, high interest, high penalty arrears first, Zambia sequencing. Enforce no PO, no pay, and auto blocks in FMIS. Audit trails immutable. Public savings redeployment, monthly posts mapping clinics, schools, feeder roads funded with savings. Phase 3, January to June 2027. Lock-in, independent assurance review of the registry and controls. Stress test for fake debt relapse. Codify any sunset clauses, e.g., claims older than X years die without hard evidence. Move from quarterly to monthly dashboards. Celebrate compliant MDAs. Carrots matter too. Africa-wide comparison, tight, practical, and a touch spicy. Ghana IMF reviews 2025 note progress and continued arrears audits under the program. Budget instructions 2025 make verification prepayment law, not suggestion. Liberia can copy paste. No verified documentation, no disbursement. Kenya. Pending bill verification now. Country sport. Senate and Controller of Budget keep turning up the heat. The Treasury's 2024 strategy even prioritizes older claims and those accruing penalties first, exactly what Liberia should do. Zambia made arrears dismantling a published strategy with a 5-year horizon and parliamentary milestones. IMF docs and MOFNP briefs keep the score. Liberia should publish the same and resist the itch for creative accounting. One-liner humor. If Ghana hired auditors to sort the socks, Kenya set a deadline to wear only matching pairs, and Zambia wrote a calendar for Laundry Day, Liberia has just opened the laundry basket and found $770 million worth of odd socks. Time to buy a sock drawer and lock the dog door. What success buys you beyond headlines? Lower borrowing costs, markets price transparency. Cleaning arrears and publishing a white list of validated claims can shave spreads faster than any slogan. Ghana's stabilizing macro signals during its 2025 IMF reviews are a cautionary but useful point. Fiscal space, credibly. Rejecting invalid claims frees cash for health, schools, and feeder roads and gives donors a reason to lean back in. Deterrence. When claimants know undocumented bills will be published, rejected, and possibly prosecuted, future phantom invoices tend not to haunt the ledger. What could still go wrong and how to preempt it? Implementation drift. Publish the dashboard and invite civil society to scrape it. If the public can't watch, the system will wander back to, we'll get to it. Vested interest pushback. Expect litigation and lobbying. Answer with rules, not moods. Statute-based, no document, no debt, and a legally protected audit trail. Capacity gaps. Borrow talent briefly. Ghana used external firms under Auditor General oversight for the arrears census. Liberia can do the same, time-boxed and scoped. Cash planning snags. Validated arrears must be sequenced to avoid starving current services. Zambia's pay most expensive first logic isn't just neat, it's necessary. Advice to African leaders, because the neighbors are listening. 1. Treat domestic arrears like sovereign debt, not petty cash. If you wouldn't float a Eurobond without a prospectus, don't pay a domestic claim without contract plus delivery plus invoice. 2. Make arrears data public, routine, boring. Dashboards, CSVS, parliament briefs. The more mundane it gets, the less space for theatrics. 3. Write a dismantling plan with dates, not adjectives. Zambia's 5-year strategy beats 1,000 we remain committed pressers. 4. Budget conditionality works. Kenya's clear your pending bills or your budget stalls will wake up even the sleepiest agency. 5. Independent audits plus disallowances change behavior. Ghana's template shows that naming the number and disallowing it teaches faster than workshops. The broader African lesson, a continental audit of conscience. The Liberian case is not an isolated event. It's a mirror held up to many African economies. From Accra to Lusaka, the same story repeats: weak documentation, overlapping claims, expired contracts, and a mysterious class of ghost creditors. If every African nation opened its fiscal cupboards, a few skeletons might start rattling. This is not because Africans are inherently corrupt or careless, but because decades of colonial administrative inheritance, conflict disruptions, political patronage, and weak record-keeping culture have made public finance management a nightmare. Many governments still rely on manual ledgers and physical files that can vanish with a single flood or a well-timed accidental fire. Yet the real tragedy is not the errors of the past. It's the refusal to fix them when exposed. Liberia now stands at a turning point to bury this audit under bureaucracy or to make it the birth certificate of a new fiscal order. If Ghana can turn IMF conditions into fiscal discipline, Kenya can make public dashboards a form of civic pressure, and Zambia can make arrears clearance a national roadmap. Then surely Liberia can make accountability fashionable again. And perhaps other nations, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, or Cameroon, might look on and think, maybe it's time we opened our own dusty ledgers, because one thing is certain, what you hide in debt will always come back with interest. A forward-looking vision. The Transparent Africa Compact. Imagine a continental pact, let's call it the Transparent Africa Compact, TAC, where every finance ministry in Africa commits to 1. Publish all domestic debt claims quarterly, including the age, documentation status, and validation outcome. 2. Digitize all procurement and payment systems, eliminating manual invoices. 3. Adopt a continental peer review mechanism where one country's Auditor General audits another's debt process once a decade. 4. Introduce a debt integrity index, ranking African countries on transparency, verification, and governance. It sounds ambitious, but so did independence, democracy, and mobile money once upon a time. Transparency is not charity. It's the cheapest way to borrow credibility. And in global finance, credibility is currency. Advice to African leaders: stop treating audits like autopsies. Here's the simple truth. An audit is not supposed to be an obituary for governance. It should be a diagnosis for healing. 1. Read the autopsy and perform surgery. Liberia's GAC report is not just an indictment. It's a roadmap. Fix what's broken instead of defending the indefensible. 2. Stop confusing political loyalty with fiscal immunity. When contractors, politicians, or insiders file fake claims, prosecute them publicly and promptly. Accountability delayed is development denied. 3. Digitize or die trying. Paper-based finance systems belong in museums. Every invoice, contract, and voucher should exist in a digital archive accessible to auditors, not in brown envelopes stored behind broken filing cabinets. 4. Make Parliament the referee, not the cheerleader. Oversight committees should ask for numbers, not narratives. Require ministries to publish debt dashboards quarterly. 5. Empower auditors general and protect them. No audit office should fear retribution for revealing the truth. In the age of data, transparency is not a threat, it's insurance. 6. Spend credibility like gold. When a country proves that it can account for every dollar, donors invest, investors return, and citizens trust. That's the virtuous circle Africa has been waiting for. And finally, laugh less at corruption jokes, because in truth, every missing dollar is a stolen classroom, an unfinished road, or a closed clinic. Summary of key messages. Liberia's GAC audit has exposed $770 million in invalid or unverifiable domestic debts, roughly 88% of total claims reviewed since 1980. Only $101 million of the claims were properly verified, signaling decades of weak documentation, mismanagement, and potential corruption. The findings reveal systemic failures in Liberia's public financial management and debt verification systems, but also open a rare window for reform. Comparative insights from Ghana, Kenya, and Zambia show that debt verification, public dashboards, and time-bound arrears strategies work when backed by political will. Liberia's government must now establish a central domestic debt and arrears registry, enact the no document, no debt rule, publish quarterly dashboards showing validated and rejected claims, pass a domestic debt and arrears governance bill, and redirect ghost debt savings into visible public investments. For Africa at large, Liberia's audit is a wake-up call, a reminder that transparency is the new currency and that accountability must be treated as infrastructure, not inconvenience. Final thought. If Africa wants to attract investment, inspire trust, and break free from dependency, it must learn to do one thing brilliantly: count every cent, document every claim, and publish every truth. Liberia's $770 million audit shock may yet become Africa's most valuable lesson, proof that financial ghosts disappear the moment you shine a bright, honest light. Thank you for watching The Bold African Voice, BAV, where truth meets courage and ideas shape a continent. Liberia's $770 million audit shock is more than a national scandal. It's Africa's fiscal mirror. Across the continent, billions vanish, not in smoke, but in silence. Lost to weak systems and forgotten records. The Bold African Voice believes accountability is not optional. It's the foundation of progress. Let this audit be Africa's turning point. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And join us next time as we uncover the stories behind the numbers. Together, we speak truth to power, boldly and unapologetically.